Hello class, I am Mr. Holly, and today we will be talking about proportions. Let's start with some basics. Now, if you're drawing proportions, you're probably going to want to start with guidelines. Now, I've told you a bit about guidelines before, but let me tell you a bit more. Personally, I like to start with the skull. So I draw a circle at the top and then draw the action line. You remember the action line. Basically, where the spine goes, so the pose character's in, so not including the limbs yet. Then I add the rib cage, so I get the size of the chest, and the hips, so get the size of the hips, and the general where the arms and legs are. I also add in circles where the joints are, so I know how big the joints are going to be. So if you draw really massive, circles around the shoulders, then you can tell it's going to be a really muscly person. There are other ways to do guidelines. For example, some people draw sausages so they know how big the limbs are. Other people just forget all that, just go to the basic wire structure of the person and then just go crazy with the outlines. Really, you can draw your guidelines however you want, however works best for you, but that's not the point of this class today. This class is about proportions, so let's go on to them. First of all, if you're going for fairly realistic proportions, then the body is 8 times the height of the head, including the head, so the head is an eighth of the height of the body. Your arm span is the height of the body as well, so it's 8 heads wide. Your hips are usually about halfway up your body, so let's say 4 heads high. Your foot is the length of your forearm. Your hand can usually cover about half of your face. And don't try to convince me you're not trying that right now. What's that? What about faces? Well, actually, I'll be doing that next class, dear student. So shut up, Harriet. Those are generally the basic things you need for drawing a human being, or human being. If you want to be more specific, go find a physiology textbook or something. But bodily proportions aren't just bone structure and whatnot. It's also muscles and fat, basically. That's a good idea if you're not familiar with where fat and muscles go on the human body. Look at pictures and, physiology textbooks and whatnot. So you have, references to know where they go. The reason why fat builds up in certain areas is because it insulates vital areas of the body. So areas of the body, particularly, obviously, the chest, stomach, and the thighs for some reason, will have more fat on them. The muscles you want to be fairly familiar with when you're drawing are the ones in the arms, the legs, and the general torso area. So obviously biceps, triceps, calves, pecs. Muscles are harder and denser than fat. So if you're drawing a fat character, you want to draw them generally with rounder lines, softer lines, than if you're drawing a muscly character who you'll probably want to draw with stronger, harder lines to make them look hard, I guess. Also, when drawing people, remember the different people are different sizes, so you might get someone who has a really high waist, or their fat settles in certain places. After all, there are body shapes or body types, like pear shape, apple shape, hourglass, etc. Your best bet when you're not entirely sure how to draw something so it looks like you want it to look is to use references. I'll be talking about references in a later class. Remember also that proportions change depending on age, so a child or a baby character will have a massive head compared to its body, along with smaller hands, shorter limbs, generally more body fat. I very much doubt you'll see a very muscly baby as well. I don't know, has anyone seen Arnold Schwarzenegger's baby pics? Now, like I said, all of that stuff is if you want to draw realistic-ish people. But what if you don't want to draw realistically? Now, obviously, I'm not going to show you every single possibility you can have with changing all the proportions and whatnot, but I will show you a couple. First one being what I like to call manga proportions. These proportions are generally pretty close to realistic proportions. Because it's slightly more cartoony, you're going to want to make the characters look slightly cuter. Generally, instead of being 8 heads high, the characters might be 6 heads high. I personally, when drawing in this style, just generally assume that one head is about a foot. So say I draw a character that's 5 foot tall, I will draw them 5 heads high, but a 6 foot tall character will be 6 heads high. Also fairly commonly, leg length might be longer, and the hands might be smaller. The eyes will definitely be bigger in this style. But we're not doing faces this week. Also, if you happen to get a how to draw manga book and it happens to have proportions in it, fairly commonly it'll have a section on chibi drawings. Chibi is a style that is used to make characters look ridiculously cute. The characters are usually drawn about 2, maybe 3 heads high. And of course, any part of their body that is not on their head is going to be extremely tiny in comparison. So the little tiny little adorable hands and feet. And yeah, you get the idea. And now she'll move on to the massive subject that is cartoonist proportions. Cartoonist proportions can be basically as realistic or as ridiculous as you want them to be. It really depends on the style you're going for. I mean, if you're going for a super serious piece, like superhero comics, like DC, then you're going to want to go with some pretty realistic proportions. But if you're going for something wacky and off the wall, like any 90s cartoon, then you can basically do whatever you want. Also, you can use your powers of changing proportions however you want to your advantage when showing characters. For example, if you're showing a ridiculously tall character, you should probably try, lengthening their legs to make them look really, really tall. Or if you want to make a character look strong, give them really massive, hands and arms. Look at Wreck-It Ralph or the Diamond Dogs from My Little Pony. Above all, don't be afraid to experiment. Now, this week's assignment is I want you to draw 2 pictures of the same character, one in one style of proportions, perhaps a realistic-ish set of proportions, and then another in, say, cartoony proportions, so you can examine the differences between the two. Now, obviously, you don't have to do both. You might try doing one. Perhaps try the realistic-ish one to practice, realistic proportions. Or try the cartoony one just to go wild and experiment and see what you can do and see what you'd like to do. If you want to share them with me, then my Tumblr is down in the doobly-doo. That's the end of class. So, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, and see you next week.